reading. So, if you will, please welcome Frank.
I'd like to make a few changes to this project. You know, this project is the one time you are allowed to read. Usually they encourage you not to read or not to have notes, but this time I can. It's quite nice. And in the manual it said, choose a great literary work. Well, I chose one of my own works because one of my hobbies is writing. So I chose my own story because the language is appropriate, I think, for the audience, and it's a chance for me to read my own story. And also I'd like to change the time from 12 to 15 minutes. I don't need that much time. Can you time me at 8 to 10 minutes?
8 to 10.
Okay. And just a few things before I start the timing. Some words I want to introduce to you, maybe you don't know. Produce means vegetables or fruit in the U.S. A produce market is a fruit or vegetable market. And I'm going to mention different kinds of watermelons, different kinds of melons, so you may not be familiar with those. And Lucky's, in California, Lucky's is the biggest supermarket in California. So I'm going to mention some of those. And this is not a seasonal story, this is a summer story. Okay, can I start now? Some people think about the time of year in terms of holidays. There's Christmas season, and Thanksgiving season, and Easter season. Some people think of it in terms of sports. Baseball season, football season, skiing season. I think of the year in terms of food. One of the great advantages of living in California is the wonderful variety of fresh fruits and vegetables that are available. Of course, thanks to modern technology, fruits and vegetables are available year-round. However, these fruits are not fresh and they are more expensive. Foods taste best, I believe, when they are in season, and there's nothing like buying some produce very dirt cheap. It seems to taste that much better. So for me, there's artichoke season, and persimmon season, and pear season, and pumpkin pie season, and melon season. Each season brings with it the anticipation of a good crop, the conversations with the produce workers at the store, the first taste of the plentiful harvest, the sheer ecstasy of enjoying fruit of the vine in its prime, and the sadness as the crops start to fade, the saying goodbye until next year, and the anticipation of the next wonders of nature. The summer months mean only one thing to me: melons. California melons. Ah, they're so wonderful and varied, painting their eloquent and subtle spectrum. Orange honeydew, green Crenshaw, lime cassava, orange Santa Claus, and the ever-popular red watermelon. Sometimes new varieties come out, such as the seedless watermelon or the yellow watermelon, but for my taste, why fiddle with perfection? Red watermelon is perfect. In June, the price of watermelon is around 35 cents a pound. And you wait, and you wait. You watch as the price sinks down and down into the 20s, the high teens. You feel like a high roller in the stock market. You bide your time. You pump the grocery worker for information about the price outlook. When it starts to peak, you make your move. You buy heavy. You fill up your refrigerator, and you spend your days looking forward to getting home and cutting off a fat slice of cold watermelon. The cool, sweet juices run down your throat and neck. I picked up the paper one day in early June. There, in big letters, were the words, "Whole watermelons, 10 cents a pound at Lucky's." My hand closed over the paper, crumpling it. This was it, possibly the best price of the year. I jumped into my car and drove over to the store. Lucky's is a big store. In front of the store, there were 2 huge bins, about 10 feet square, that were filled with huge watermelons. It's fun to watch people picking out a watermelon. Everyone seems to have their own method. Some people have an explanation that goes along with it. Others don't worry about that, saying they're only interested in the results. Their system works. One of the most popular methods is the thumping method. You smack the melon as you would smack a bare bottom. Usually the person is looking for the melon that emits a hollow sound when smacked. Some people look at the bottom of the watermelon. They look for one that is more white than green. The whiter the better, they claim. It stayed on the ground longer, thus it had to ripen, they reason scientifically. Some people go for the shape, the more round, or the most oblong, depending on their taste. There are those who spot the perfect melon way down under the pile, and they must expend a lot of energy in order to move the others around to get to theirs. Others simply ask another person, the produce person or a grandmotherly type, to help them. I picked out 2 medium-sized melons using the thumping method, put them in my basket, and walked over to the checkout line. There in front of me was an elderly black woman. I peered into her basket. She had 4 good-sized melons in it. I sensed a kindred spirit, and I wanted to say something friendly to her. However, I hesitated. Because in the United States, there is a nasty stereotype about black people and watermelons. That all black people go crazy over watermelons. I didn't want the woman to think I was making an ethnic slur. I was in limbo for a second. But I thought about it a while, and then I thought, well, this was too good an opportunity to pass up. So I spoke up and said, wow, I found someone who likes watermelons even more than I do. She turned and looked at me for a moment, then she looked at my cart, then she smiled and said, that's right, I do, and they're all for me. This was surprising. When she saw the look on my face, she added, my husband died 2 years ago. I was very depressed for a long time. So I decided I was going to enjoy myself whenever possible. And you know, there's not many things that I enjoy in life anymore. So when I find one that I do, I let myself go. I don't care what people think. You know, they'll keep for over a week as long as you don't open them and keep them out of the sun. You don't expect this kind of openness at the checkout line at Lucky's. I expressed my condolences at the loss of her husband, and then, in an effort to change the subject, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll guess how much your watermelons cost, and you guess how much they cost, and whoever is closer will pay for the other person's watermelons. How much do you think your 4 watermelons will cost? She cocked her head to the side, thought for a moment, and said, well, I suppose about $17. I looked at the melons and made some quick calculations. About 12 to 15 pounds apiece, at 10 cents a pound, $6.76, I guessed. By this time, everyone else in line was looking at us secretly, not wanting to get involved, but interested and curious in spite of themselves. Do we have a bet? I asked. The old plump woman laughed. Yeah, we have a bet, a just for fun bet. I agreed. It was her turn next. The checker was smiling as he put the 4 watermelons on the scale, about 67.5 pounds. He looked up at us and said, $6.65. Everyone broke out into a cheer. I had missed by only 1 cent. I apologized in mock humiliation for having missed it. I blamed it on my cold. The old woman was astonished. I had no idea that it would be that cheap. Good thing you didn't bet, I said as I turned to pick up the melons and put them into her shopping cart so she could wheel them out. When I turned to ask her if I could help her carry them to the car, she was gone. I looked around. She was back at the watermelon bin. She picked out 3 more melons and carried them one by one to the counter to be weighed. I had no idea they were this cheap. She smiled, not at all embarrassed. I looked back at the other people in line. They were smiling and talking to one another. None of them looked impatient. The woman paid the clerk another $3.45. "You've got your work cut out for you," I said. "That's the kind of work I don't mind," she replied. I loaded my 2 watermelons on the scale, $2.45. I thought for a moment and told the clerk to wait, and I ran over to the bin and picked out one more big fat melon. I paid and put the prices in my cart, and I pushed fast and caught up to the woman. We swapped watermelon stories as I loaded the 7 watermelons, weighing over 100 pounds, into the trunk of her car. As I drove away, I was thinking about stereotypes, the sadness of death, the bravery of the old woman, and the distance between people. But mostly, I was thinking about getting home and that first bite into that fat, cool slice of watermelon.
Thank you, Frank, for that interesting story. We'll read.